Hey everyone, I'm Alex Lee, or Alexander Lee, and this is GamesBeat's The Big Show. I'm here with Mike Minton, the Chief Product Officer of Twitch. Thanks for coming on, Mike.
Glad to be here. Excited to see what we're going to get into.
Oh, let's jump right in. So, my guest today, it might be the only tech executive who lives in a house off the grid that he built himself and is a former Marine. And by the way, I should say that these are all things that I learned about Mike pretty recently. Members of his team told me this. I've known Mike for 4 or 5 years. I don't even remember when we first met. I feel like
it's not at TwitchCon. I found out
not at TwitchCon, but we've had some very pleasant discussions about monetization and product rollouts over the years. But we've never had a chance to dive deep into the Mike behind the Chief Product Officer title. I'm going to explore some of those details that I just mentioned, but I think the best way to get into it is to go all the way back to the very beginning. So first I'm going to ask, Mike, do you identify as a gamer?
Absolutely. I identify almost as a degenerate gamer in that I absolutely love all forms of gaming. I've done currently I'm playing Enshrouded again, which I just from a sandbox survival is kind of my sweet spot. But grew up on, showing my age, I suppose, Space Invaders, like getting Space Invaders to roll over on the Atari 2600 was probably one of my first gaming memories. Shortly after the Pong and the screen and the magic of like, oh my God, you can turn this dial and something on the TV moves.
Wow. So your first game was Pong, what moment did you realize that this is a career? Like this is something where I can actually make my life?
Yeah, it was a long time after that. And I had, we can talk about the military background, but really it was much later in life when I was working at a small startup called Amazon, and they made this acquisition that, I'd been a gamer, kept gaming friends, through all this time. And I saw the headlines and I'm like, Amazon acquires Twitch for nearly $1 billion or whatever it was. And even being a gamer, I'm like, what's a Twitch? I had no idea what a Twitch was. And I watched an interview with Mike Frazzini, who headed up Amazon Game Studios at the time, and Emmett Shear. And I was like, holy cow, that's fantastic. Like, there's these people that it's a site that's totally focused on video games. Like, this is my thing. And, anyway, long story short, some people at Twitch reached out to me because I happen to know some things about e-commerce and that at Amazon, and they said, "Hey, we want to launch this product, and we think you can help." And that shortly led to me getting to know the Twitch team, and ultimately within a few months taking a role over at Twitch.
What was your role at Amazon at the time?
I worked at a business. Amazon has this huge app store, if you've ever heard of it.
I think I have. Amazon, what's that?
Well, but their app store actually is mostly on their devices. And at that point, they had a little bit of penetration in Android because they had a coins product that was kind of a loyalty reward, thing that worked for many players. Anyway, so it was in the Amazon App Store, and I was a tech leader. I owned a bunch of technology about what apps can run on a device, how to buy apps, and that kind of stuff.
So, okay, we're going to work our way backwards.
All right.
What brought you to Amazon?
Wow, that's a good question. What did take me? I had been working in various forms of tech, from like web content management, e-commerce, and they kept calling for different roles. The recruiters are like, hey, we think we have this role for you. One was like, I'm pretty sure it was like Alexa. It was like very low level programming early in those days. And I'm like, it's not quite right. There was another job in retail. It wasn't quite right. But this job just like hit the sweet spot of like, it seemed interesting. It was something I hadn't done yet. And like in this, app store space, I was impressed with the company. I was like, wow, it seems like they're going places. Maybe this is a place that I could grow, and ended up interviewing. And I was really, when I interviewed with them, the way they went about it was something I had never seen before, as it related to how they tell me about a time that you did this thing. And I'm like, wow, this is really interesting, because a lot of interviewing and tech assessments are just different than that. Anyway, so got the offer and decided it was something I wanted to be a part of, and the rest is history, I suppose, 12 years later. So,
I mean, you don't necessarily think of a military background as a pipeline into tech or into these types of roles. I mean, I think people from the military go into all roles. It's a microcosm of our population in general. But I would still love to hear what's the connecting force there. What bridged? And you know what? Why did you go into the military?
Wow, this is getting really, really. Let me reflect on this for a moment. So,
okay.
I thought I was going to be a mechanical engineer in high school. That was I'm like, this is what I want to do. And I went to a college in northern Michigan, Michigan Technological University. It's about as far north as you can get in the U.S., I think. They get about 7,000 feet of snow a year.
Wow.
And
do they ski there?
There's one hill. Anyway, it's a very isolating place. About 6 months into it, I think it was 2/3 of the way through, I realized there's this type of math and like the deep physics stuff that just was not working. And I'm like, that's it. I'm done. I'm out. I can't do this. I don't want to be here. I don't want to study this. Left college, much to my parents' dismay. I was driving a bulldozer. And I enjoyed that. Driving a bulldozer is something really fun about pushing dirt around. But I knew I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. And a Marine recruiter just happened to call on a day that I wasn't really sure what I was doing with my life. And what he was selling me was more interesting than I was doing at the time. And plus, if you remember well, you might not remember, but for those of us who do remember, the late 80s, early 90s, they had the best brand advertising in ever. Like you're slaying dragons, you got a sword, they don't show you all the not fun stuff. But so it was like a great sale. And I'm like, okay, I'll go be a Marine for a bit and maybe I'll get my life on track and figure out what I want to do. And anyway, it took me to 4 years enlisted. Some reason I decided to stay, but they took me to college. It was really the important thing. Ended up at the University of Michigan. Again, thought I was going to be a civil engineer at this point. But a friend of mine was there and said, hey, you ought to look at this computer science stuff and I can get you a job, like part-time job doing some programming. So worked for the Office of Orientation, printed thousands and thousands of labels on a printer. Wow. Now, it was light programming, but that led to me then realizing that what I really wanted to do was be an engineer, or software engineer specifically. And University of Michigan, I owed 4 more years, went back, did 4 years as a Marine officer, infantry officer, and got out and went back to a startup that I worked at in college in online recruitment. And then from there, just kept growing in terms of responsibility. Went from being an engineer to a manager because I had that leadership background. And then ultimately, sometime later ended up at Amazon and Twitch.
Wow. Okay, so if you want a C-suite role at a big tech company, drop out of college.
Yeah, that's not the takeaway. I did have an unusual journey. I think I ended up in the right spot, but I never would have plotted how I was going to get here from where I was there, right? And I tell this to people all the time. It's like, some people try to overprogram their career and overthink the decisions and your next role. The other thing I often tell people is don't be afraid to go backwards. There's 3 points in that span where I could tell you about, I had a big job and I took a smaller job because it was either more interesting or a different challenge. And then that ended up propelling me forward into something new.
That's honestly really, really inspiring and good advice. And by the way, I have to say, I have to shake your hand because you're a University of Michigan man. I come from a Michigan family. Oh. My dad went there. My brother went there. Really? My grandparents met there.
What happened to you?
I got into Harvard, and it was hard to say no to that. And my mom went there too. So, it was the filthy fantastic family legacy. But
Michigan is the Harvard of the West, I think.
Harvard is the Michigan of the East, as my family says. Okay, all right. And we just won the national championship in basketball as well, by the way. So I was actually popping off about that. Anyway, I digress. I didn't know that you were a Michigan guy. So obviously, I mean, it sounds like you've been on a path up to your current role, but do any experiences, or leadership skills that you developed during your military time still inform the way that you approach your job now?
Yeah, there's every large organization usually has some set of structured values and principles, right? Mm-hmm. In the Marine Corps, we learned about leadership principles, and some of the ones that really stuck out to me were set the example, right? As a leader, you're gonna if you can't talk the talk, you can't do the walk, and a lot of that's physical performance, often in those terms, or being willing to do the thing that you're going to ask somebody else to do. Mm-hmm. Be technically and tactically proficient was another Marine Corps leadership principle. It basically means know the details of your job, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. And join a company like Amazon is very similar. I could almost map the leadership principles 1-to-1. They use different language, corporate speak versus military speak, but it maps well. And so for me, that's like a roadmap of behaviors and expectations that works really well for me. And so even today as a tech leader, I you do reach a point where you can't actually be a software programmer at the same level of competency as an engineer in your team or a product manager, whatever it may be. But you at least have to understand to be able to empathize and be able to provide the right direction in terms of capabilities and whatever it may be. So it all stays with me. And then I think the other big thing is when you have experiences like, participating in something like, armed conflict, you in 3 weeks. So I was part of, just real quick, 5th Marines. We were the first regiment from Kuwait going to Baghdad.
Wow.
So it was, 3 weeks of very intense, very little sleep, very little, a lot of stuff going on, obviously. But when you go through an experience like that, it really kind of hardens you in some ways as it relates to, like, there could be, Twitch famously had an incident, security incident several years ago. And I remember, day after day of like remediation, solving the problem, 18, 16-hour days, whatever it was, just working through it. And one of my peers is like, Mike, you just were amazingly like even keeled through that entire experience. I'm like, yeah, like things like this just don't, I can keep that kind of even keel, kind of common, stay grounded. You don't get too excited about things, because when you've been and had those, very, very challenging experiences, it gives you a different perspective.
I hadn't considered this, but I have to ask, I mean, as someone who has actually been in these combat environments, do you play any like shooter games or anything? Yeah. You still enjoy that? It doesn't necessarily.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. Doesn't bother me. And I actually enjoy it a lot, because the ones that do it well, you can appreciate because they are tactically sound, or, obviously most things these days are what we'll call an arcade shooter. Like, there isn't actually realism to them. But when you do play some of these games that are a little slower pace and a little more tactical, it's like you actually have a greater appreciation for but my friends always give me a really hard time, because I am not a strong FPS shooter. Part of it's like reaction time or whatever it may be. And we play these games and we lose. He's just like, well, how come you didn't help lead us to victory? Like, you should know what we should be doing on like a squad based type thing. And I'm like, yeah, it doesn't like translate that same way.
Good thing I wasn't in your squad in Kuwait, right? Yeah. Oh God. Okay, we're almost at Twitch, but I want to ask you one more question about you, and it's about the fact that you built your own house, and I'm told live off the grid. Although, since you work at a tech company, I don't know how true that could be. But just tell me about that. What's the story?
Well, okay, so the short story is, I grew up in northern Michigan. I loved where I grew up. There's a lot of the outdoors pieces. I love lakes. I love green trees. I love, whatever. I love what that area has to offer. My family, my wife's family's from there. We wanted to get back before our kids graduated high school. We had an opportunity to do that, fortunately, and really love where we've ended up in literally a one stoplight town.
Wow.
Which is hilarious when you think about it. But we're happy. We did build a house. And the technology, though, to your point, like, I have redundant internet of multiple forms and backup generators for power. So I'm not really off the grid, but working in tech, you do have to consider, like, primary internet goes down. Like, you can't be like, I can't work today because I don't have internet. You got to have plan B. And I think shortly I'm going to have plan C.
You are the grid. No, I love that. I think I may have made up the off the grid part in my mind. I don't know if anyone told me that. All right, so let's talk about your current role at Twitch. So you remind me, how long have you been in the role of Chief Product Officer now?
Chief Product Officer was last July. That was formalized. So is it last July?
So just under a year.
Just under a year. I was doing it on an interim basis since March at that point. So we're hitting about, just over a year now of being in the role. And before that, as you know, I was on the monetization side for about 9 years.
How has Twitch evolved over the last year? And, maybe we can talk about how your new role kind of plays into that evolution.
Yeah, I mean, the evolution of Twitch has been, I think, one of both growth, pandemic, of course. We went through this huge explosion of growth. A lot of it has retained since then. And then from a content perspective, I think the things that we're seeing consistently, the growth of non-gaming. Not to say gaming isn't growing, but like there's a lot of creators are doing a lot of interesting things that are outside of gaming, which is fantastic. And then events are the other thing I'll point at. When you and just globally, like when you look at La Velada in Spain with Abai, you look at Squeezy and his GP Explorer thing he does in France, you look at the Streamer Awards in North America, like these events are huge and they are attracting millions and millions of viewers. And I think it's just fantastic to see that growth from a content perspective and the maturity and the skills that content creators are demonstrating as they're building these huge events, figuring out how to monetize them, how to grow their audience. It's really just been fantastic.
So how do Twitch's own events fit into this rise of events? Are you guys consciously making changes or expanding things like the upcoming TwitchCon event in Europe in order to take advantage of creators and streamers' growing desire for this kind of thing?
Yeah, our role in those for the creator event stuff is mostly an enabling function as opposed to, really on the production side or planning side or anything like that. But what we can do is obviously awareness and marketing, and like we can, obviously we have pretty substantial reach. We can help creators make sure they can attract their audience to these events. Monetization, we can help connect them with brands if they need to from a how do I monetize this event perspective. And then of course there's a streaming component on Twitch. We're evolving, building things like co-streaming in a way that work for the content owners. So there are certainly some product things that we can do to help. But our role is more, as I said, more on enabling and amplifying as opposed to like directing, producing, etc.
What are the areas that you think are maybe untapped or underappreciated for live streaming creators right now? Like beyond events, what do you see as the big potential opportunities or growth areas in the coming year?
Yeah, I think the thing that remains true, and we've talked a fair amount about this in the last few years, is that content creation is often a collaboration exercise, in that some of the best, most interesting content being created is a function of multiple creators doing things together. And that could be simple things like, me and so are going grocery shopping, and it becomes a content moment because it's just real life, but they're good creators and they know how to make the most of those moments. So that's the thing I would just continue to encourage people to think about, is like content creation is a solo endeavor. Obviously, there's a lot of great content that's created by people that are very focused on themselves and the things that they want to tell and create. But it gets even better when it's multiplayer entertainment and you're bringing multiple creators together.
On the flip side, are there any trends or buzzwords in the live streaming creator space right now that you think might be overhyped or getting a little too much oxygen?
I think the clipping meta is a little bit over toasted currently. Yeah. I don't think it's sustainable in its current form for a lot of reasons. I think when you look at some of the trends now where people are not buying ad products and instead they're paying clippers at a 1/10 of the rate. And if you're a large platform that owns an algorithm and your algorithm's being abused, it doesn't seem like that's going to be a sustained way for creators to think about long-term growth.
Yeah.
So I think it's a refocus. Don't get me wrong. You should absolutely, as a creator, have a short-form channel. You should push your content there. You should create entertaining content. But the manipulation is the part that I think won't be sustained for a lot of good reasons.
Right. And it sounds like you guys are not necessarily a top priority for Twitch is not building out infrastructure to support this kind of clipping meta.
We are absolutely helping creators export their content to these services, right? And we are absolutely helping the community create clips of great content. And we hope that in an authentic, organic way, like that does help. It's there's I'll call it abuse is probably the best word, of where it just goes too far.
Yeah. I agree. And it's, what I've seen is that it seems like clipping is building a ton of infrastructure around the top of the funnel without necessarily paying attention to what happens after that.
And that's why I think it's so important that, like, if I'm a community member and I'm watching and I'm part of a great moment, I want to share that. That's very authentic. It's very organic, right?
Yeah.
Creates good content, helps the creator. That's the good side of clipping, and we want to definitely see more of that. Helps acquire a new audience, helps maintain connections. Like, that's all important. But when you're starting to literally put millions of dollars into paying clippers, then I think something may be a little bit out of kilter.
Yeah. And in case anyone listening to this is unaware of clipping, because somehow it's so pervasive and yet not necessarily something that's reached the mainstream, it's the practice of creators, often podcasters or live streaming creators, taking shorter viral clips of their content and paying smaller accounts to blast them out across numerous social accounts, often faceless social accounts, to create a sense of organic interest.
Yeah,
I think I got that right.
I think it's
right?
a pretty good, pretty fair summary. Often you hear the term aggregators and that kind of thing as well. No.
Yeah, and I think I think that's actually a more accurate term. Just more syllables as well. So
it's my University of Michigan vocabulary.
What did you study at U of M?
Computer science.
Oh, okay.
But at Michigan, computer science is in the LS&A, literature, science, and the arts, right? So you get your way more English and all the kind of foundational, stuff than I thought I needed at the time. Now I appreciate it, honestly, but at the time I did.
I got to ask, by the way, speaking of Michigan, how much time did you spend at the arcade on North Campus?
Not too much. At that time, I think I was more into PC gaming than I was consoles and that. But yeah, certainly. And Pinball Pete's too. Downtown was another very, very famous.
All right, this guy knows Ann Arbor. Pinball Pete's.
I was there for 4 years. And actually, I lived there 2 years after that too. So I actually spent about 6 years of my life in Ann Arbor.
Awesome. Yeah, I still have an aunt and uncle who live there.
Okay.
I love the town. So when you look at Twitch in the next 12 months, what single thing excites you the most, if you had to pinpoint it?
Yeah. When I think about Twitch, I think the thing that excites me the most is the work we're doing now about short-form content and making it work well for creators on Twitch. We spent a lot of time helping creators export their content, and I think we've missed the opportunity to think about how can we better serve the person who only has a few minutes, opens up their phone, wants to catch up on a moment or relive a moment they were part of, and then, go to a clip feed and get entertaining clips of content all across Twitch, whether just to be entertained or discover new creators. And so we're very focused on the on-Twitch clip experience, which has been kind of new for us after spending a lot of time talking about exporting and sharing your content.
No, that's really exciting to hear. I know a few years ago, you obviously had the Twitch clips function, and I would use it all the time while watching Super Smash Bros. Live streams, and I'd go back and I'd watch my favorite clips, and I wanted, at the time, the only way to really look through clips was to just kind of look through a sequential timeline of clips that had been made of a stream. Can we expect more, of an algorithm and clip discovery features coming?
There's already those pieces there. We're improving them. I think the biggest thing that you'll see us do is entry points into that. Because, you open up the app today, you have the live feed, and there's obviously opportunities for us to make short form content more visible in that initial experience and get people into, if they're in a moment where they want to, as I said, relive or, watch a recap, or if they want to be entertained, that we can, put more of that content forward. So there's the discovery side of it. And then on the creator side, when you look at your smaller creators, many of them don't have any clips at the end of their stream, right? Either because somebody didn't clip for them or they forgot. Content production's hard, and remembering I should be clipping myself at the same time you're trying to think about I need to be entertaining. It's hard. So we're working a lot on helping increase the volume of clips. So every creator ends a stream with, say, 3 to 5 good clips that can become great clips, can become viral moments, can be discovered, etc.
And I love the idea of being able to leverage tools like AI to identify those moments. So that's I'm excited to see what you guys are doing in that front. And I mean, honestly, it's clipping has risen so much. The source of all that value is ultimately Twitch 90% of the time. And so it's great to hear that you guys are, looking to maybe take more of that off the table for yourselves. All right. We're going to do a speed round of some fun questions to end on. What game are you playing the most right now? What's your current obsession?
Right now, it's Enshrouded.
Oh, yes.
It's my current obsession.
You did say that.
I also recently played Windrose, which is like a pirate survival sandbox fantasy thing. Build a big ship. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Great game. I played a little bit of Crimson Desert before that. A really solid game. I love a lot about it. It just doesn't stick with me the same way like a sandbox survival, build my whatever, build my base, I guess, but gather stuff, build stuff. My favorite game of all time, and I'm honestly, I hate to say this because it doesn't sound like I'm a shill, is New World was my favorite game I've ever played.
Okay.
And when I got the news that it's, basically end of life, I was just shattered.
Sorry. And sorry, you did say you were playing Enshrouded.
Yeah. No worries.
Another fun round question. What are you watching right now? And specifically, I'm thinking about live stream creator content.
Ooh, live stream creator content. I've always watched, there's a set of creators, the Night Crew, I think they refer to themselves often, Burke Black, Max Gonzalez, aka Gassy Mexican, Co-Carnage. That's kind of my go-to group of creators that I consistently watch. On the live side, though, honestly, I probably watch more live sports, because that's also fantastic live content.
Yeah.
But, and I think some of the stuff that, I actually, when Thursday Night Football is on Twitch and it's a game I'm interested in, I think that's really cool when you get the interactivity of chat with like live sports. I think that's fantastic. Yeah. I know we're doing stuff with the NBA now, with Creator Cast. We have some stuff upcoming. I think you bringing the Twitch interactivity and the magic of chat to like live sports, I want to see more of that.
Awesome. What are your sports?
Well, NFL, certainly first and foremost. College basketball when Michigan's good. College football, of course. All the normal American sports.
Yeah, it's been a rough couple of years for Michigan college football, but we'll get back there.
Yeah,
we did win the Natty a couple of years ago, just saying.
Absolutely. 2 national championships, right? In one in basketball and one in football in the last 5 years.
That's right.
That's not a bad.
Ohio State can't say that. That's all I'm going to say.
They can't even say they got a Big Ten championship in that time.
That's right, Ohio State. You heard it here first. All right. Well, last question for you. Are there any Twitch streamers? Do you want to call out a streamer? Anyone that you think maybe, could get a little more attention or deserves more love from the Twitch community?
That's like a trap question in some ways. Because the minute you identify one, then I will, let me think. I've been watching, man, I may have to check my follows to make sure I get the.
We can edit this question out too.
Let me just look real quick at my follows, because there is actually one that has been streaming a lot of the games that I like, and he's a totally average gamer. He's live right now.
I love that name.
First person in my feed. I've been watching a lot of him recently, and I find him. I find him quite entertaining.
Totally average gamer. I know another creator named Typical Gamer, and now I feel like they need to do a collaboration of some kind. So you heard it here first. Tune in to Totally Average Gamer. Well, Mike, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about your experience in the Marines in Michigan and everything else. It's been a real pleasure.
Awesome. Well, it's been fun.
Thank you.
Hopefully you get some usable content.
I think we'll get some clips out of it. We'll be clipping the hell out of this. Yes. Don't worry.
Are you going to pay $1 million to get it distributed all over?
I'll talk to Gina, our CEO, and we'll see what budget we have.
Fantastic.